In this video, I'm going to show you how I made my own custom birthday ice cream cake. Hi there, foodie friends. My name is Carly and welcome back to my channel, Adventures in Yum. Since 2020, I've made my own birthday cake because it allows me to experiment and try new ideas. Sometimes things work out even better than expected, like last year's glorious mint chocolate chip inspired cake. Video for that is in the description. While others may not work out exactly as planned, like my ice cream cake from 2 years ago, which was the first one I ever made. This year I decided to make another ice cream cake because ice cream is one of my top favorite desserts. And this year's cake is inspired by one of my top favorite ice cream flavors, chocolate chip cookie dough with caramel cores. For the cake layers, I decided to attempt marble cake layers, so I made a batch of my vanilla cake and chocolate cake. Both of the recipe videos are linked in the description below. Once both of the cake batters were ready, we added some of each to our greased and floured pans. I decided to alternate layers of the batters and then use a cake tester stick to run through the batter and try to marble them. You'll see soon why I say try to marble the cake batter. Once the 6-inch or about 15cm pans were full about 2/3 of the way, we bake them for about 25 to 30 minutes or until the cake tester comes out clean. After chilling the cake in the refrigerator for at least a few hours or overnight, we then level them. To make the ice cream filling, I prepared a batch of my homemade vanilla ice cream. Click on the link in the description for that video. I was originally going to make homemade cookie dough pieces, but when I found these Ben & Jerry's cookie dough and half-baked packs at the grocery store on sale no less, I knew I had to use them. I decided to add 1 bag of the half-baked as well as a bag of the regular chocolate chip cookie dough pieces because I wanted the ice cream packed full of cookie dough yumminess. After mixing the half-baked pieces, cookie dough pieces, and about 8 ounces or 224 grams of mini chocolate chips into the ice cream, I spread it onto a sheet pan and smoothed it into a flat, even layer. I used plastic wrap on the bottom of the ice cream, but I recommend using parchment paper instead. After covering it with plastic wrap, we place it in the freezer until it's completely frozen solid. I highly recommend doing this step probably about a day before assembling the cake. Once the ice cream is frozen, we're adding an extra step of using a Wilton 1A piping tip to cut out little sections of the ice cream and then fill them with caramel. This is my homemade caramel, but I wanted it to be more gooey out of the freezer, so I used more cream and less butter when making it. For a little bit more of an explanation about this, check out the description and/or comments below. Once all of the sections are filled, we cover it and freeze it again for at least a few hours. We then take a large cookie cutter with a diameter of approximately 4.5 inches or about 11.5 centimeters and cut circles in the ice cream. I only cut 2, but I should have cut 4 as you'll see later. Finally, before we assemble the cake, we need some buttercream, so I made a batch of my vanilla Swiss meringue buttercream. The recipe video is in the description. Now it's time to assemble the cake. We add a dollop of buttercream to act as the glue to keep the cake on the cake board. Then we add 1 of our cake layers. Next, we add 1 disc of ice cream and center it on the cake. Using a piping bag fitted with a Wilton 1A tip, we pipe rings of buttercream around the ice cream. This will help hold the ice cream inside of the cake if it happens to start melting a little bit while we work on the cake. Then we add another cake layer and repeat until the rest of the cake is stacked. Once we place our top cake layer, we add some buttercream and use an offset spatula to spread it into a thin, even layer on the outside of the cake. Once it's done, we pop it into the freezer for at least 15 to 30 minutes, but I actually think I let it sit in there for a few hours while I worked on some other projects. Next, we're adding more buttercream and smoothing it all over the cake. We use a combination of a cake scraper and an offset spatula to smooth the buttercream. To help get really sharp edges, we can pop this in the freezer for about 10 minutes and then use our cake scraper that we've run under hot water and dried to cleanly smooth our buttercream. Once we're as happy as we can be with our smooth buttercream, we pop it into the freezer for another 15 to 20 minutes. Before we decorate this cake, if you're getting value out of this video, then please make sure to hit that like button, click subscribe, and ring that bell to be notified about my latest video. We're using either a piping bag or a plastic squeeze bottle to add slightly warmed homemade caramel to the cake. We start with a test drip, and when we see it's warm enough to run down the cake, but not too warm to allow the cold cake to stop that drip before it touches the bottom, we know it's ready to go. We make sure to do drips of different lengths by squeezing either more or less caramel. After completing the drips around the cake, we add a generous amount of caramel to the top of the cake and use an offset spatula to smooth it across the top. We then pop that into the freezer for about 5 minutes to let the caramel fully set before we finish the cake. Then using a Wilton to de-tip, we're adding dollops of buttercream around the top of the cake. I like to start with one side, then do the opposite, then go halfway in between, and then do the opposite of that, and so on until the border on the cake is complete. Next, we're adding mini semi-sweet chocolate chips onto the top of the buttercream dollops that we just piped, as well as filling in the top center of the cake with mini chocolate chips. We then take some large edible cookie dough pieces and add them to the top of each dollop. Now we're adding some mini chocolate chips and gently pressing them into the bottom of the cake to make a border around the cake. And here's the completed cake. We actually took this with us to the restaurant that my family and I went to for my birthday dinner, and I made some shorts videos about that awesome experience, so make sure to check those out as well. As you can see in this photo of me holding a cut piece of cake, the marble layers didn't work out so much, but I wasn't disappointed because I used my birthday cake to experiment with new flavor combinations and techniques. Not all experiments work out as intended, which is why my page is Adventures in Yum. It's an adventure to try new things. I will say that my favorite part of this experience was making the cookie dough ice cream with caramel in it. It's so creamy and tasty and just so good. What do you think of this cake, and would you try this cake? Let me know in the comments below. If you're interested in checking out some of the products I used in this video, then please make sure to check out that video description below for some of their Amazon links. Thank you so much for joining me today, foodie friends, and thank you so much for the wonderful birthday wishes. I'll see you next time for another yummy adventure.